resources, inspiring interviews, business practices, and practical advice to take your art career to the next level. Join Sergio Gomez in today's Artist Next Level and get ready to take control of your career.
Hello, my friends. Super happy to be here with you today. I'm having a conversation with my good friend Sofia. We're going to talk about how to tell your artist story throughout the different stages of your art career. And specifically today, we're going to focus on the emerging artist. So if you're an emerging artist, check this out story. And particularly today, we're going to talk about telling your artist story as an emerging artist. You know, we have different areas in our art career: emerging artists, mid-career, established artists. And how do you tell your story, particularly when you're starting your career? And that's why I'm having this conversation here with Sofia. She's normally behind the scenes, behind the camera. She's our social media manager, and she's also an emerging artist. So this would be a perfect
we were talking about it, and he was like, "No, just tell your story. Like, it's gonna be so much simpler." And I'm like, "What story? I have no story."
Absolutely. Sometimes it could feel like, well, what's my story? Maybe, and this is regardless of the age. Yeah. I mean, you could be 20, you could be 50, for example, and just coming back from another career, or maybe you are an artist who just started getting into art later in life, and so like, okay, how do I tell my story if I don't have a whole career behind me? And that's a great question, because I think many of our friends might be asking that question. Maybe you who are watching this right now, maybe that is your question.
You're
maybe,
like me.
Like, what do I say in my post today, right?
Yeah.
So I think what we can talk about is we all have an origin story. We all have an origin. How do we get in the world, right? That's kind of like the first basic part of our stories. How do we get in the world? So, for example, you can make, and I have created a post in which I talk about, how I became aware of art, how I got interested first on my art career. I always, like, one of the stories that I like to tell is that when I was a kid, I never met an actual living artist until I was like 16 years old. So the first 16 years of my career, I've seen artists doing art in museums, but I had never met, like I'm talking to you right now, an actual living artist. So I didn't even know you could actually be an artist. So, Sofia, how did you first get your introduction into art?
Oh, God. Well, I mean, I liked creating things as a little kid, and I would be the one selling like little butterflies around everywhere that I drew. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I mean, I think I was studying something that I didn't really love. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to do something that I don't know, like, even if they didn't pay me, or they, like, it wouldn't give me a lot of money, like something that I would do for fun. Uh-huh. Even like as an old person, like, this is what I would do for fun. Mm-hmm. I don't know, I just don't get bored of it. So that's how I decided I was going to study art.
Okay, so you saw as something like, I'm never going to get tired of this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that could be, for example, a perfect social media post, like where you say, hey, guys, let me tell you a little bit of my beginning story.
Nice. Oh my God, I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I really got into art because I really saw this as something I would do forever, and never get bored of it. And
it's just that it's endless learning. I mean, it's endless learning.
And then you can say in the post, hey, does that resonate with you? Do you agree with that? And then invite the conversation. So again, we all have an origin story. So as an emerging artist, we all have, this story of how do we got interested in art, right?
Yes.
And then another part of that, I always, when I look at the branding of an artist, I always think, our stories. We all have a story. Also, we all have our influences. Who influenced you as an artist? Who influenced me as an artist? Who influenced you as an artist? To become the artist that you are now. So you can make a social media post with one of your paintings, and then in the caption say, hey, let me tell you, I was really influenced by, for example, Picasso or Michelangelo, whoever really influenced you in the history of art, that you felt an attraction to that artist, that could be another social media post. Who was an influence for you as an artist?
There is this Russian artist that I really like, Zenaida Zenaida, I don't know her last name. It's like super hard to pronounce.
And I didn't ask you before, so you didn't.
But Zenaida is, you can just find it like that. Zenaida is one of my favorite artists, and like her whole backstory. So I went to Russian art school when I was younger. And it was super nice because we always, like in my art history class, I always asked my teachers, like, why don't we see any female artists? Like, even if because it was Russian art history. Right. So I was like, why can't we see any female artists?
Right.
And they were like, well, I mean, nobody's ever really asked me that. And I was like, well, yeah, look it up.
Right, exactly.
And they found this artist, and she's amazing. And she ended up like getting out of Russia, moving to Paris with her 2 kids. She was a widow. I don't know, amazing art. And she lived off her art. So that's, I don't know, it's super inspiration.
And that's a story that you connect with. So out of that story, there's 2 different posts from that. One post in which you're just saying, one influence that I had is this artist. So you introduce that artist also to your audience because you're sharing that. Even if the post has nothing to do with that, in terms of the image, it's still your art.
Yeah.
But you're talking about that's an influence, right? That helped me to be what I am. And then another different post could be, hey, let me tell you a story. And when I was in Russian school, blah, blah, blah. And I think, again, those are things that we all connect with. We want to know more about, right? And there's a little nuggets of information that we can give. So again, as an artist, think about your origin story. Think about the influence that you had, in your art career. And then, of course, the other things that you can talk about is also something that I always look at in the triangle of a brand is the values, right?
Yeah.
What do you value as an artist? What do you value as an individual? It doesn't matter if you've been making art for 1 day or 1,000 days.
Yeah, so you would make like a post about literally just about values, like
one value at a time.
One value at a time.
So let me give you an example. For example, in my art, in the thing that I make, I value life, right? That's one of my values, life and connections, relationships with people. So my work is about the cycles of life. Right?
Okay.
So that's one value. So I can start a posting one of my paintings, say, guys, let me tell you something. I really value life because my work is about the cycles of life from birth to death and our transition between this life, right?
Okay.
And so that, that gives a little bit of a story of something that is of value to me. And then somebody who may be reading that post, be watching that on social media, if that person has a similar value, will connect with that. Will say, oh, that is cool. I also value life. So when you start thinking about it, there's a lot of things that we can say, at every stage of our career. And today we're focusing on the emerging artists. So hopefully this is helpful. Was it helpful?
Yes, very helpful. I'm thinking about what I'm going to post now. What stories I'm going to post about.
What stories, right? So our homework for our friends watching this Verify with Sergio episode, think about, again, one of the samples that we give today. And do that post tomorrow. Go through your social media, figure out, okay, which artwork you want to put, and then tell a bit of a story. And don't get too crazy and put a really long, giant story that people don't have time to read. You just give us one snippet, one piece of information. And as I always say, only share the things, that you're comfortable with sharing with a stranger, right? So never share something that's too vulnerable for you or that you feel uneasy about sharing. Because you're sharing it with the world and with people that you will never meet in your life. So, always share what you feel comfortable with sharing, and that could be one little step at a time.
All right.
So, thank you, Sofia.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Have a great day, my friends.
Bye, guys.
We'll see you in the next episode. Please share this episode with all your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. And if you're listening to the podcast, don't forget to also follow this podcast. Have a great day. Goodbye.
Check out our website at www.theartistnextlevel.com, where you will find our podcast library, learn about our upcoming webinars, find resources relevant to your career, and much more. Thanks for listening to today's podcast, and we'll see you at the next level.